everyone. Welcome to the Lies We Left podcast. I'm Ashley and I'm here with my three sisters. This is our podcast about a sister's journey through trauma. Today, we're going to be talking about our confrontation that we had with Cindy. And just before we get started, just a quick disclaimer, we're not professionals. However, we are going to be providing resources to everyone throughout this podcast. So if you need anything, be sure to check those resources out. So where do we want to get started with this particular topic?
Maybe we should talk about like what it was like before we confronted her, when we decided we should confront her.
Yeah. So we got through Thanksgiving, which was really awkward because all of us had had that hard conversation with one another.
Well, Rachel didn't know.
Rachel had just gotten back from a trip, and then
so I don't think Rachel. Did you know? I don't think you knew.
I mean, I definitely knew when we were addressing the issue with her.
Yeah, but for Thanksgiving, I don't think, because you were on a trip.
No, we did, because the four of us kind of had that blowout, because you guys were wanting my consensus on what we were going to do going forward. Because I was still under the impression that she was coming to our Thanksgiving, and you guys were like, no. And do you guys remember that?
Okay, so Ashley, Brooke and I were very much like, what the hell are we going to do? And you were very much like, I don't know if this happened, kind of sweeping it under the rug and not really wanting to talk about it. So we kind of just let it be for Thanksgiving.
Well, we asked her not to come to Thanksgiving.
No, that was Christmas.
That was Christmas.
I thought she didn't come to Thanksgiving.
No, she came to Thanksgiving.
No, you're right. She did come to
because
Thanksgiving.
she grabbed Sawyer's face, and I got angry.
Well, so I'm misplacing Thanksgiving with Christmas.
Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful.
So it's
all one big blur.
It was basically Christmas. It was the catalyst because Travis, my husband, he was very much like, we're not having Christmas with, your mother if she's going to be there. There's no way I'm going to let my children be around a molester.
And just for clarification, this is in 2019. This isn't 2020.
Is it?
It was 2019 because we confronted her February of 2020.
Yeah. Okay. So Terry, Rachel's husband, right, tells Cindy not to come to Christmas.
Yep.
Did he give her an explanation? What did he tell her?
He said something to the effect of, we have family stuff going on, and it's deep and it's big, and we want to talk to you about it eventually, but right now can't come to Christmas.
Because at that point in time, you and Terry didn't, it's not that y'all didn't believe, but y'all just didn't have all the information.
We did not have all the information.
You didn't have all the information, so you thought, I don't know, did you think maybe we were being dramatic in a sense? It's okay if you think that.
No. I didn't. God love me. I'm not stupid by any stretch of the imagination. I'm actually fairly average intelligence, but it takes me a long time to process things, and it takes me a very long time to decide what I'm going to do. I put a lot of thought and a lot of consideration into the decisions I make before I make them, because that's just how I am. That's just my personality.
Yeah.
And it takes me a very long time to process things. And so I was still in the middle of trying to sort out everything.
And it was the holidays.
Your
anniversary,
the holidays. Yeah.
Mallory's birthday.
Yeah.
Trent's birthday.
And this was a huge, here's the thing that everybody has to keep in mind, is that we went from having every family function, including Cindy. We had her at every family function up until that moment.
Almost every family function.
Almost everyone. And so, especially for me, it was even though I knew I really didn't have a relationship with her, it was okay, so now all of a sudden, because of stuff that happened to me in my past and my sister's past, we now have to not only confront her about this, but we have to tell her that she's no longer welcome around our family and our family functions moving forward.
Yeah, so Christmas, it was really awkward. Terry was upset. You were upset.
We didn't know.
I mean, we put y'all in a hard situation, especially
it was a tough spot
without.
to be put in.
So
We should have had a powwow.
it really
probably.
wasn't a hard decision at all. What made it difficult was me taking along. It was a hard time to do that. You're right, because that's probably the busiest time of year for me. But the biggest thing was just kind of, I think out of all of us sisters, I had probably done the most therapy and the most work on my relationship with my mom. And if I'm being completely honest, motherhood is something that I've always craved, and I've always craved that relationship. Having a female that was older, that loved me and gave a frick about me in my life. And so that was something that I had worked on for years and years and years through therapy and everything. And Aaron, you put it to Terry very bluntly in a text, and was just
so like fast forward to February, and it's your oldest son's birthday. It's Trent's birthday time, and
you had sent a text to everyone that it was, we were having it there, and I had assumed that we weren't doing any more functions with Cindy.
And again, I'm still I'm still trying to process, how do I need to go forward? What's the right thing to do? Because it in the back of my mind, the last thing that I ever want for my two kids is to write me off, completely. And so there's a lot of thought and effort going into, but I didn't consider what I was doing to my sisters by me not making a decision and not acting on it. And Aaron put it perfectly in a text to Terry and was just like, so your inaction is basically saying that you don't believe us.
So, but before, the reason why I sent that text was because,
I had sent a text saying, hey, just to make sure Cindy's not going to be there, right?
Yeah.
And Rachel replied yes. And I said, guys, I'm really sorry. I can't be there. I'll throw up if I see her. Like, I cannot do it. I shake. I physically and emotionally am not there. I cannot be around this woman when she hurt my sisters and me.
So long story short, it was basically put to us that, we needed to kind of get over it and either tell our nephew that we can't go to it but no hard feelings.
Because I didn't want to be pushed into making a decision before I was ready, which giving me an ultimatum is the perfect way to just make me sit down like an ass and just sit in the dirt and do nothing, because I'm very stubborn. But anyway, when Aaron put it to my husband, he let me read it, and it kind of just shook us. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. That's not at all what I believe. It's not that I don't believe them. It's just, I don't know how to move forward, period. And I want to do the right thing, and I want to do the wise thing, but I don't know what that is right now with this decision. But then when I read it, I was like, you know what? She did this. If she's out of our life, this is a decision that she made and a choice that she made to write herself out of our lives. It's not necessarily a decision that Terry and I made or the kids made writing her out. It's just, you did this a long time ago and you did this to yourself.
And then we had I think we had a really good conversation as, the siblings and our husbands.
Yeah.
And I think that was a really good conversation. I think
and
it was needed.
All the husbands at once, the one thing Colin, Terry, and Steven and Travis said is, you guys have to confront her.
Yeah.
You can't not deal with this.
Yeah.
And that was the one thing that our husbands were united in, the fact that you have to confront this. You have to.
So then when did we actually confront her?
February of 2020.
Later?
It was the end of February.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. This was right before COVID.
Okay.
Right before all of that came out.
The night that we confront her, we asked who asked her to come over to
Me.
So Ashley asked Cindy to come to your house, and we're all there. What did y'all feel like before? I'm going to be honest, and this is so shameful to say it, but I didn't want to confront her. I didn't want to see her. It was so scary to me. Like, I felt like I was a child again, and I couldn't say anything that I wanted to say. Like, it was almost like the spell was on me, and it's like I wasn't a 30-year-old. I was a child.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a voice.
I was sick.
I was scared to have a voice.
I was so nauseous and sick. I think I threw up like twice in the bathroom because we all got there early.
I couldn't eat all day.
We all got to Ashley's house early. Ashley had a vape pen that had some
Essential oils.
essential
That's
oil.
all it was.
Yes, some 420 essential oils.
She doesn't do that. It
Well,
was really essential oil.
It really was.
Oh,
It was
it
just
was?
it was just
Yes.
CBD oil.
Well, no wonder I kept hitting that pin, wondering why
It was
wasn't
just
making me feel better.
It was just CBD oil.
But it was just Stephen. I think all the husbands were in the room with Colin. Well, mine was.
Yours may have been. Terry was at home.
Yeah.
Stephen came.
Travis came.
Travis came.
They're all locked in a room or something.
And
like,
I remember putting my phone on airplane mode and recording it because I wanted my therapist to hear it, and I needed validation of what we were going to hear because I didn't believe at that point that anything that we heard would be true. Like it was a bad dream we were going to wake up from.
yeah. So she comes, and I remember this. It was so awkward because none of us were saying anything. And I remember thinking, Erin, have the courage to say something. And I couldn't say anything. And none of us said anything but Ashley. And I have to say, Ashley, I'm very proud of you for how you just brought about everything. You know, you were very,
Mm-hmm. You weren't confrontational.
You weren't confrontational. You weren't, you did this, you did that. You're like, let me take you back to our childhood. And
How
do you think,
yeah.
how do you feel our childhood went? You know, you asked her that question and you were just, I was so proud of you. And then I also was like looking at myself and I was like, damn it, my little sister is sticking up for me and I can't even stick up for her or myself.
I was doing something called ARing her.
Oh.
What I do in my job. It's really putting the ball back in their court.
Yeah.
Tell me how you think our childhood
I know,
was.
but that's really hard to do.
Oh, it was
to the
really hard because
person-
I didn't know how else to start this conversation. I didn't want to just say, hey, we came to the conclusion that all this happened. You suck. Get out of our lives. Like, I didn't want to go about it that way, but it was really hard to start this conversation.
So you tell her exactly everything that you remember.
Yeah, I went into specifics, and then y'all started kind of speaking
About the
up.
molestation.
We didn't start out with the molestation.
No,
though.
no,
We
I'm saying like
started-
when you went into specifics about
yeah.
what you remember her doing to you and her making you do to her, you were very specific in that. And then I believe you chimed in. I chimed in a little. No, I didn't chime in. I didn't talk a lot. I remember that.
For a while, you didn't.
Yeah.
You were very.
It was so scary to me. I was so scared.
There was one point during this whole confrontation where she brought up Dad.
Oh, no.
And I was
before
just-
that. So after all of us say what we remember her doing, she says, I plead the fifth. And
She
that was,
actually, she put her hand up in the air and said, I plead the fifth.
yeah.
Like really cocky. And all of us just were like, I think my face went
Like
right
that-
to Erin
that-
and I was like,
That's
what?
her response was. And I think that's when I started talking, because that got me really mad.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, first off, if any of my kids sat me down and said, Mom, this is what I remember you doing to me or whatever, I'd be like, oh my, what? Like,
At that,
I'd be like, what? Like,
When I tell the listeners that her face did not change, there was no emotional change.
Yeah,
It
there was
like
nothing to
we
it.
She
had-
was very uncomfortable.
I was
though. You
Oh,
could
yeah,
see
she was
that.
very
flabbergasted at her response. And I
Yeah.
I
think
plead
even
the
after
fifth.
the three of you said what you needed to say, she turned to me and was like, so did I do this to you too?
Oh, yeah.
And I was just like, where is this attitude coming from?
Yeah.
Like
And-
almost like maybe you didn't do half of the things that you've already admitted to do. her defense of herself, like, shocked me.
And then what did she say about dad?
So I brought up dad. No, sorry, I didn't bring up dad. I was getting into specifics about things growing up, and then she was like, "Well, your dad didn't do this, that, or the other," and I was just like, "Well, it doesn't matter because he's dead. I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about you."
Oh, and then she also said, "Well, your dad wasn't perfect either." And then she started to say something else, and then she stopped herself from whatever she was about to say. And I recall being like, okay, that's weird. But then I remember her saying to all of us that she said, y'all must really hate me in order to make up this lie.
And I think at that point is when I interjected, Mom, do you not remember telling us you never wanted any of us? I never said that. Like, she flat out.
She told all of us that.
She told us.
She told us all that we were accidents.
Remember, yeah, that she never wanted any of us.
I believe it. And she asked me again. She asked me again to the effect of, do you believe all of this? And I just kept like running over in my mind. If you are high off your mind our entire lives. I had heard her admit to somebody else that she doesn't remember our childhood because she was asleep for it. You know, in and out of the times that we were serving her breakfast in bed 3 times a week. She was high on medication. She slept our whole lives. And I just remember her denying everything so vehemently and going, well, that doesn't add up. How did you get to sit there and say that this didn't happen if you don't remember anything?
Yeah.
You don't get to say that. And I said that kind of, I was like, how do you get to say you didn't do that for certain when you weren't there? You were high. You were high or drugged or stoned or drunk or both. All of the above. How do you get, it just made me, that point made me very concrete in the decision that I made.
And I think I was
that I
the
had made
first
the right
one
decision
to tell her, you know, I forgive you, you know, but I cannot have a relationship with you. The relationship has ended. And I said, you did something terrible to the sisters I love and to me. And I wish you nothing but the best. And I think there was like a moment of long, awkward silence.
And then she told us that she hopes that we all continue in therapy as we need it. And that's the last thing that she said.
Oh, no, she did imply that we were all high.
What? Really?
Remember, she said, I think all of you guys are high or something.
Oh, didn't I say, like, yeah, I don't do drugs or something?
Yeah,
like that?
you took
I said
care of
something.
that.
I was like, yeah, no, that's
well,
not
and there was
accurate.
a point when she looked at Rachel and because Aaron said, yeah, I need to do what's best for me. Ashley said something to that effect of, hey, we're ending the relationship. And then there was that long silence. And then she turns to Rachel and said, how do you feel? And Rachel said, I need to, at this time, support my sisters in their journey of healing. I cannot leave them alone. And she just looked at the ground. She wouldn't make eye contact, and she just got up and left. Huffing and puffing, I might add. Like, she was all dramatic, like, oh, this is gonna
Kind of
kill
going
me.
back,
I'm
though.
gonna die.
Kind of going back, though, during, like, the beginning of the conversation, everything that I said, she had a response for. Like, every single thing that I said, it was, well, you know, your dad didn't have money, or like your dad this, or that's not how that happened. Like, she constantly defended like every single, like, one of the things that I brought up was like locking us out of the house. And she's like, well, that's not how that happened. I'm just like, okay, well then how did it happen?
Did the lock magically lock after
She said
the door
she said
was
something to the effect of that you wanted to play outside or something like that. Y'all were, I don't remember exactly what she said, but she had a response for every single thing that was said.
Moving forward, like, did it help you guys afterwards?
No, it didn't, because
It
like,
felt relieving to end it.
yeah, it felt like, okay, at least I don't have to deal with this, you know, this is done. But it's like, I wanted that closure of her saying, yeah, I did it. Like, I wanted that. I wanted to hear that, because sometimes I still think I'm like I believe you, Ashley, I believe you, Brooke, but sometimes it's hard to believe myself. Like, I always doubt myself. I always second guess myself. And I think, well, maybe I am just a crazy person. Maybe I am just like, I want evil on people. Or maybe I have a mental disorder where I make up lies and all this other stuff. But then I'm just like, then I have to like think logically and think, like, I don't enjoy, like, it's hard to have sex. Like, I have flashbacks. I have things that happen that make, you know, that type of life, you know, hard. I wouldn't be making all that up.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and I think
and I don't think it's really a good thing. Like, I don't have fulfillment or pride in saying my mother molested me. Like, that's disgusting to me. It's gross. Like, I don't want to think that happened to me, but unfortunately it did.
And I think that's the part in the healing process where it's hard. Your brain is trying everything to protect itself from the reality that you faced. I mean, it's rough. Like, who wants to ever admit that their mother, the one thing that is supposed to protect you? I mean, it's rough. There are days where mentally I had to ask Ashley to stop telling me certain things because I just couldn't mentally handle what I was hearing. It broke me in a way that I don't ever, you know.
I think for me, this like confirmed everything about my childhood and the relationship that I never had with her. And so this was just the icing on the cake. Like, it's one thing to not feel wanted, and it's one thing to be told that you're not wanted, but to also be physically hurt is a whole nother aspect of it that is really hard to wrap your head around.
And here's the thing that I think it's just like another layer on the cake is we were told our whole life about purity. Keep your purity. The one thing you have as a woman is your virginity. If you don't have your virginity, you don't have anything. I hope God helps you out, because that's the only way you're going to get out of it, you know? And, you know, we're not told about sex. You know, we're not told about that stuff. And then, like, then you decide one day, I'm going to have sex outside of marriage. And then you have that, and that's weird and awkward. Well, it was for me. And so it's like this sex thing is all like, it's just like a hard.
You're taught that sex is like a sin. So even
until you're married, and suddenly it's amazing.
But then you're supposed to like
be free,
not feel guilty
in the sheets
anymore.
Yeah. I know, but like, you're supposed to be a freak in the sheets once you get married.
I know, and
all that just comes naturally because God ordained it. God blessed it. Like, no, it actually doesn't happen that way. It actually doesn't. So it's like, but when you get older and then you realize, and this is like really hard to say, so this might be triggering to some people, but it's hard to admit that your first sexual encounter was with your mother.
Well, in your second sexual experience was your friend's brother molesting you.
Yeah.
So of course you're freaking confused about it.
Yeah.
Know?
So it's like,
but one thing that y'all have to remember is that none of that was by choice.
No, it wasn't.
Like, none of that was.
But that's where your head goes to.
But
you can't. When you're brought up, being told to ignore your body. And when you're brought up being told that you're there to serve other people,
and
you're there to make your dad happy, you're there to make your mom happy, you're there to serve the church, you're there to be the receptacle of making other people happy. What's the last thing that you're going to do? The last thing you're going to do is look inward and look at yourself and think about what I want, because that's taught as selfishness.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, and I get goosebumps just talking about it now, but that's the way we were raised. We were raised looking outward to make other people happy.
And to not
So of
think
course,
of yourself.
we're going to have repercussions, moving forward in our lives. It's very hard to live normally when that's how you were brought up and raised.
Yeah.
Can you bring up people loving God, loving Jesus, going to church, doing all of that? Sure. I'm sure it's possible, but that was not our experience. Because of that, we need to talk about it. And because of that, there's this podcast. And because of that, that's why we're talking about it. I remember after we talked to Mom, I just had nightmares for like weeks.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. That's how it always happens with me whenever I'm going through trauma. I have nightmares. But you know what? It wasn't nightmares like something bad is happening to me. It's just nightmares about, what you guys went through. And it was more of an anger response that, oh my God, seriously, this batshit crazy lady had this kind of impact on my sisters this whole time. And it really solidified my resolve in how we needed to proceed moving forward.
It was really, with this whole thing, it's still kind of, it's crazy to think that, before I kind of just thought my life was just like so many puzzle pieces that were dumped on the floor and I couldn't just put them together and make sense of my life. Even though there were so many things that I did know, there were still pieces that I couldn't fit together and it was just so confusing. But the minute that I accepted that this was my reality once upon a time, it started really fitting so many pieces together and so many other things started clicking. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I now see why this is such a big deal. This makes sense to me. And then kind of similar to Rachel, having nightmares about different stuff. And I started noticing how much I almost made her into like this demon in my head because I've had so much anger in my heart and like hatred towards her. And I'm still working on that to this day. It's still really hard for me not to be angry and bitter and just so angry with her.
It brought out a lot of anger against Dad too. Mom made a point to bring up his shortcomings. And in thinking about it afterwards, abuse is allowed. And he absolutely allowed it. I'm not saying, I don't know. He had a lot of responsibility. And I think I got a lot of anger.
Well, he stayed with a woman who was drunk 24/7.
Yeah.
And high on medication 24/7. And he knew that she wasn't taking care of us.
And so talk about, warping your perception of what manhood is. And what a protector is, what a provider is. There was a lot of anger that built up after that scenario and after us having that confrontation. It just made me really angry at both of them because let's be honest, they were both really bad parents and damaging. Dad tried to change towards the end, but it's still, that damage went way farther.
I think as parents, people fail to realize that there is a time stamp attached to your role as a parent. That is, you have this window of opportunity to protect, to nourish, to just fill this little child's head with everything you know. And that time was over. And
well, I think they did fill us with everything they knew.
It was a short story.
and I think the right.
And that's why we're here at the podcast.
No, and Dad did try, bless his heart, to change in things. In the last 3 years of his life when he was living, I had great, healing with him. And then coming out, more things come out. I feel like I was right back where I started. I'm not bitter or angry at either of my parents. I'm just at a place of, well, it happened.
That's not me.
It happened about 6 months ago for me. I just realized I'm an orphan. I was never loved.
Well,
no one wanted me.
Well, I think you were loved. I think, and that's hard to say. I think Dad loved us in the capacity that he could.
Agreed. Yes.
I don't know if I can say that about Cindy right now.
No, she did not.
I mean, there are times where it's like I really try to like go deep and I investigate, and there's no reason why I should, because I can't have any answers. But I'm like, if she did those terrible things to me, then why did she sometimes care? Why did she sometimes take care of me when I was sick? Why did she sometimes do this? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
It plays with my mind too, because we grow up
like, that's weird.
Hearing we're not wanted. She never wanted us. Go outside, locks us outside for hours on a time, and then something snapped and it changes, and she wants pictures of us to show other people.
I know.
And we're her little trophies. Look at what I have.
Oh, our
accomplishments were never our accomplishments. They were hers. She took responsibility for everything.
This is like a tangent or a side note, but do y'all remember the cards that she would write us?
Ugh.
Sometimes. Okay, so the last few years, if she ever did write a card, the cards were so weird. She always said, I deserved a great daughter and I got one.
Yeah.
It was like things like that.
It was an entitlement.
Like, I would never say I'm a great mother. I deserved a great child. Like, no, I was blessed with 3 children that I didn't deserve.
Yeah.
Like, that's how I view me as a mother with my children. But it's like she would say stuff like that. It was just very weird, very narcissistic. Anyways.
She was always like that, though.
But even the gifts that she would give us.
Oh my gosh. They were gifts she wanted.
Yeah, because she knew
I did not want satin sheets for my birthday.
But
I wanted money.
Travis didn't want stupid glasses.
Wait, what? Glasses?
Did
what?
she
Those stupid glasses that she got Travis for Christmas one year?
Oh yeah.
Which
And
sister?
Travis was like, I don't know what to do with
How
it.
about the gift cards to Cindy's?
That's what I was just about to.
Oh, that was weird. I mean, our husbands enjoyed it.
Cindy's is expensive.
For those of our listeners who don't know, it's a lingerie
store.
shop. Like, there's nothing weirder than getting that from your mother.
I have a harder time reconciling that Dad loved us as kids.
Ooh.
I have a much harder time with that. I absolutely believe that he knew about the abuse, and for him to not step in, yeah. But I definitely believe that towards the end he tried to change. He was trying towards the end. In fact, him and I had very candid conversations where I would beg him to see a therapist and beg him to get on medication, and he would just say, it's too late for me.
Aww.
He literally said that.
I told him all the time to get on medication.
It's too late for me. I'm glad you're getting help, but it's too late for me. And that kind of tells me where he was. But growing up, I absolutely believe that he was a perpetrator too, because he allowed it. And so
I think that's why. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think that's partially why Dad was as anxious as he was, and he didn't sleep.
He was just carrying around all that guilt.
Like he carried around this guilt of what he didn't change and what he didn't intervene.
Well, and he had his own traumatic childhood.
That too, but I'm saying all of that absolutely can create a lifetime of not sleeping, of extreme anxiety, depression.
Yeah.
But I mean, if we're being honest here, Dad's side of the family as well as our mother's side of the family both had generational incest.
Yeah.
Boom. They had both sides of the family. I mean, that's kind of big. I mean,
I think it's more normal, but I think a lot of people have.
There's so much shame behind it.
I think a lot of people have a hard time talking about it, which I get. It's really, I mean,
but Dad was so afraid of us getting sexually abused.
Oh yeah, that was always
the one fear our dad had, because he told
was a reality that you guys were already living.
Yeah, like how do you
Yeah.
Like, that blows my mind. How did he not know the signs? How could he have not known? This was his biggest fear. I mean, I just, it doesn't make sense to me.
So that's why we're talking about all this wonderful goodness on the podcast. No, it's something that needs to be addressed and it needs to be talked about. I think the hardest part for me was telling my son.
Oh, you told him?
You told?
I
Trent?
absolutely told him.
Oh, okay.
You told him what happened?
He's a smart kid. I didn't give him details, but I absolutely told him in detail what happened.
What'd you tell him?
I told Sawyer.
He asked why we didn't see mom and her spouse, and I said, do you really want to know? And he was like, you're really gonna tell me? And I was like, I'll really tell you if you really want to know. And he took a big huge breath and he was like, and his voice was kind of shaky and he was like, yeah, I guess so. And I was like, well, we found out recently that Gigi had been molesting three of our sisters, and she refuses to take responsibility for that. She denies all of it, but it happened. And his eyes teared up and he was just like, you're kidding. And he was just like, he said something that was so poignant. He was like, she did everything else to you guys, so that's kind of where I was thinking.
Wow.
And
Golly.
I was like, and I told him right afterwards, I was like, the hardest part in telling you this is I don't ever want that to happen between the two of us. And he was like, you don't have to worry about that because you're nothing like her. But that was the hardest part for sure, was telling Trent. And I've told Mallory, but I haven't given her details. Mallory's response was really cool as well. Not cool, hard. She cried and but she also she had a cool response because it was cool to me, but it was hard to hear at the same time. But she was like, why in the world would somebody do that to their kids? And I was talking to Terry, telling Terry about the response, and Terry's like, isn't that amazing that that's her response? That's her reality.
Yeah.
Wow.
Is who in the hell would do that to their kids? And he was like, isn't that cool that you're the parent that's created a child that's like, who on earth would do that to their kids? Yeah, my kids get straightforward every single time, and they'll get the truth every single time because they deserve to hear it.
I did not know that Trent knew.
I told Sawyer sometime last year because he asked me, he said, how come we never see your mom? And then he said, you don't like her, do you? And mind you, I don't.
Wow.
And even before that, like I never talked about Cindy. Like I never talked bad about her, never talked good about her. I just never talked about her.
You just could feel your energy about her.
Maybe. And so he said, why don't we see your mom? And I said, well, it's a long story if you want to hear it. And he said, okay. And so I said, not in detail, but I said, that she molested me, that she molested, Ashley and Brooke. And that's very evil. And I'm not going to put myself in that situation. And I'm not going to put y'all in that situation.
What did he say?
He just was very quiet, and he said the same thing that Mallory said. He said, why would someone do that to their child? And he said, Mom, are you okay? And I wasn't crying or anything. And then I started to tear up, and I just said, honestly, son, no, I'm not. But I'm trying. I'm going to therapy, and I'm trying as hard as I can. I'm trying to work through what I need to work through.
So I had told Granny, Colin's grandmother, and I was really close with her before she passed. And I think I told her sometime last year. And it was really hard for me to tell her about that. But her response to me was just that, you know, she was very, like, just compassionate about the fact that that happened, and she had already kind of talked crap about Cindy before that, if I'm honest, and she already didn't like her before that.
I think she saw right through her.
Yeah, but when I told her, her response was just that, you know, like, you and your sisters, like, didn't deserve any of that. And that, like, basically telling me in so many words that none of that has to define us.
Yeah.
And that just really encouraged me, because dealing with this has been such a shameful thing to deal with. It's been so hard to accept that once upon a time, you know, happened, and now we're trying to navigate all this, and it still is really hard. I mean, it's gotten, I guess, kind of easier. I don't really know, to be honest with you, but I mean,
I know as a CPS worker, anytime I hear, and I've had to hear children tell me about abuse that they've endured, I get re-triggered. I want to go vigilante. Like, I want to be like, you know what? Our justice system doesn't really work for these kids, so I'll just handle it in my own way. Like,
Yeah.
like, and then it's like I see these kids and I see their helplessness. And I think that's what, like, I see, like, me as a kid in them. And I'm just like, I just want to save them so bad, because no one saved me. I couldn't save myself. No one saved me.
we had so many people in our childhood, y'all. Like, we had so
Yeah.
many.
I will say, though, that
so many
like,
people.
there was, you know, a person that I was very close to who, you know, we won't mention, just so that, you know, whatever, privacy and all that. But, like, she was my only way out. She was my only way out of the house.
Yeah.
And I remember just, oh God, I just wanted to live with her. And I just wanted to live with her. And that's all I wanted. I just wanted to live with her. I didn't want to live in the house. And I didn't even know why I didn't want to. But it was just like, I felt loved by her. And I didn't feel loved by anyone.
Yeah. When y'all all left,
no, besides the neighbor down the street.
Yeah. When y'all all left, I really wanted y'all to take me with them.
I did eventually.
You did.
It took me a while. It took me a while, but I did.
It did. Rachel did eventually take me in, and I'm very thankful for that.
It is interesting that throughout every kind of crisis or life-altering thing, we've always had each other. Each of us has lived with the other. We were each other's family, and that's pretty awesome.
I will say, though, like, I guess I need to deal with it, but I still carry guilt. Like, just when I was 16, like, I checked out. I was with a boyfriend. I loved him, and I was going to be with him once I turned 18, because I wasn't smart enough to go to college, you know, as I was told. And, you know, he was my ticket out. And, you know, and that's all I thought about. Had I known that was happening to you, Ashley, like, I would have never left the house. I would have called CPS. I would have done anything to protect you.
Same.
And I just was so desperate to get out. I
don't blame y'all. I wanted to get out.
I know.
We all wanted to leave. We all wanted to escape. I so desperately, we've all talked about this, but we all wanted to go to a boarding school. Like, we thought that was the coolest freaking thing, to have clothes, to not have to worry about your clothes, to have your meals, like, every single day.
Like, I think all of us
educated.
sincerely wanted to be in school 8 hours a day.
We
Yes,
did.
If
Absolutely,
anything,
yeah.
we would have been in school for 10 hours a day if
Yeah.
any of us had the option. we wanted to be educated. We wanted to be, I wanted to be a landscape architect. That's what I wanted to be. Now I'm doing good by not killing the plants I have. So that's good. But yeah, no, I
did struggle with guilt really bad when all this came out. Like, how stupid could I have been? This happened to me. How did I not recognize it in me and know what was going on to my sisters? Like, I felt so guilty.
Yeah. But I think, like, going back to, like, what Brooke said is we had each other and we still have each other. And that's something that I'm really thankful for. Yeah.
It's a hard subject. It's a really hard subject to talk about. But it has to be talked about.
It does, because when we first started going through all of this, it's amazing that we had a therapist that me, Brooke, and Aaron were seeing, not together or anything, but separately, and we kept everything very separate so that way things wouldn't run together. But it was pretty interesting that she was kind of like one of the only people that like helped me see that this is way more normal than people.
Yeah, this happens a
like
lot.
talk, but there's hardly like any resources. There's hardly any kind of information about any of this, and it's hard to just find. So
I will say I thank me for finding the therapist.
Yes, Erin, thank you.
And then I also want to thank me for finding the purple mattress. This isn't an ad, but
yes.
Because of me getting a purple mattress, now 3 of my sisters have purple mattresses. So
not a
thank you,
sponsor
Erin.
yet.
I want to
Thank
kind
you,
of
Erin.
talk about for a second the aftermath of confronting Cindy. We didn't really talk about that. Like, what from now until then, we've had no interactions with her.
No. I did.
yeah,
Oh no, you did talk to her.
yeah.
I meant like face to face.
Another
Oh.
story.
Like, she hasn't been
Another-
at any family functions. We haven't I haven't talked to her or anything like that, but I think here and there she has called Rachel like twice, maybe, like last year, right?
She dropped presents off.
Oh, yeah. God, I want to move. Okay. Sorry. I really...
God, I want to move.
Sorry.
I don't like people knowing where I live. Sorry. Yeah,
Do
she
you
did
feel
drop
assaulted when people ring your doorbell and you're like, why is someone at my door?
when they find it.
Who could this be?
Why do we have front doors?
No,
Why can't we have a tunnel where we escape our own house?
I think
the
next-
Enneagram has been so revolutionary to me. It's like, oh, I'm not just weird and want to live in a hole under the ground where people don't know me or recognize me. It's just I'm a number 5.
Brooke,
That's all.
What happened though with that conversation? When was that conversation?
So I was working out at the Tesla construction site, Gigafactor in Austin, Texas. And to our listeners, we have a group text. It's all of us sisters. And we, if our husbands say, don't tell this person, we're right there in the group chat telling our
Yeah, it's like,
sisters.
it's those TikToks that you see and you're like, I won't tell anyone but my sisters.
So
Your secret's safe with me and my sisters.
So Erin texts the group and says, Cindy just called me and left a voicemail. And all of us at the same time, what did she say? I don't know. I haven't listened to the message.
So, but the reason why I knew it was her, because, okay, so I had blocked her on my old phone and I got a new phone. And for listeners, when you block someone on an old phone, it doesn't transcend into your new phone.
Doesn't sync over into
Yes,
your
it doesn't sync over. And so I get a call and I'm like, what the heck? And then she leaves a voicemail. I'm like,
Did you ever listen to it?
no, I didn't. I deleted it. I couldn't listen.
So anyway, I had deleted Cindy's number from my phone and I'm all ready to.
But before that, because this kind of leads into what you're about to say, Mother's Day of 2020, I accidentally called her.
Oh, yeah. I do
Like,
remember
what
that.
the hell? Like, that's really messed up. I accidentally called her on Mother's Day because my mother-in-law's name is Cindy. And for some reason, but I have my mother-in-law titled Mum Via Law. I don't know why I do that, but I just think that's a funny name. Anyways, so, but for some reason I was like, oh, I will call Cindy, and I look up Cindy and then I dial her. And I was like, and I immediately heard her voice and she said, who is this? So she had deleted my number because she said, who is this? And I immediately hung up. So now a year later,
So
she calls me.
So
again.
I'm blowing up the text message. Somebody give me her number because I don't have the number in my phone. And Aaron's like, no, Brooke, don't worry about it. I'll deal with it. And I was like, someone better give me her damn number.
Which I wasn't planning on dealing with.
And Ashley finally, I think Ashley put it in a separate group text to me. Here you go. Here's her number.
Well, yeah, I
And-
didn't delete her number because in case she tried to call me, I didn't want to answer it.
Oh, I got
That's the only reason why I didn't delete it.
So-
You should be able to put an emoji instead of a name for the number, and we could just have the poisonous symbol, like the
Something
skull
like that.
with the X, so that
Something
everybody
like that.
knows.
She's currently under my phone as a very bad name, a very
Okay.
unladylike name.
Okay.
But so I call her. I stepped outside the work trailer and I call, and my heart is racing. Like it felt like the longest conversation and the shortest. Like I don't know how to explain it. She answers, hello. And I was like, is this Cindy? And guys, I don't know how I did it because my heart is beating and I'm still getting like an anxiety attack right now just talking about it. Because confronting her was hard, but this was so much harder. And I said, is this Cindy? It is. Who is this? And I said, this is your oldest Brooke. And I'm calling to let you know you are no longer to call any of me or my sisters. You are no longer allowed to drop presents off. You are not allowed to contact us. We are dead to you. Do you understand my terms and boundaries? And then there was silence. And then she goes, hello? Hello? Who is this? And I just simply repeated in the same kind of monotone, do you understand the terms and boundaries that I'm setting for you? Well, yes, I understand. I must have butt dialed you. Like total flip of a switch. Like just goes from lying. Who is this? Hello? I can't hear you. And she just made and I said, that's fine. Delete all our numbers. Again, we're dead to you.
Mm-hmm.
And she hung up. And I went inside the trailer. My heart is racing. And I think I had to walk back out of the trailer and just kind of walk around a little bit because I was just so like, ugh. But I mean, for me, that was a pivotal moment because I didn't get to stand up for my sisters. Not when they were kids. And I got to do it then. And it felt so good. It was so scary. But I never have to hear her voice ever again after that. Next battle is yours, guys.
Yeah.
I got the last one.
Well, and going back to me feeling bad, I was like, I wasn't even willing to stand up for myself right then. I'm like, at some point in time, I'm going to have to grow some cojones and stand up, you know? But anyway, so thanks for doing that, Brooke. Well, I guess this concludes this podcast episode.
So in the next episode, in the next couple of episodes, we're going to start going into each of our stories. And next episode, we'll start with Brooke and kind of work our way down. And it'll be super cool to kind of hear everybody's stories individually. And then I'm sure after that, we'll start inviting people on to the podcast. And
Like our husbands.
I have a question before we end.
Yeah.
How have you guys been working on forgiveness?
I haven't. No, I'm just kidding. No, in all seriousness, I have had a very hard time with forgiveness. I haven't really thought much about it. I haven't really been asking for even the willingness to forgive right now.
Yeah.
I'm kind of just in this place where just kind of at a standstill, just trying to like let it all out. I don't even know what forgiveness is going to look like for me.
That's exactly where I'm at too. Like, what does forgiveness look like going forward? Like, I'm open,
Yeah.
but what does that look like for me? you know, because, and in my mind, I think everybody will admit I've been in therapy the longest out of everybody, and I've had the most counseling. So I understand the importance, but moving forward with the boundaries that I've set in place and how does that translate to my life? That's one of the biggest questions that I have.
I think for me, there was a point where I forgave her, and now it's more of like, I don't know what I am right now. I personally, this is me. I'm not blessed as one of those people who is like, I forgive you, and then they never think about it again.
Well,
or they just have this like weight lifted off of them.
Yeah.
Like, forgiveness, I think, is like an everyday, every moment thing. And to be honest, I don't go about every day thinking about her or about what happened, but in my dreams.
Can I blow your mind for a minute?
Yeah.
Maybe this podcast is an act of forgiveness.
I don't know about that.
No, seriously, I was thinking about it the other day, and we're sharing our story and we're continuing, and we're possibly giving hope to other people that don't have a voice like we were back then. And maybe this is a way that we can move forward in forgiveness by talking about it. Anyway,
so there
that's all I wanted
definitely
to say.
for me was a point, like a one-time, I forgive you, but you're not going to run my life anymore. You're not going to be there rent-free. You're not going to do any more damage. Like I'm a strong believer. My pastor said to me once, because I think at one point we were all questioning, how do we honor our parents through this? How do we do that? And he was like, that's baloney.
And by the way, for anyone who like doesn't know about the Bible, it says honor your father and mother, and your days will be long or prosperous or something like that.
I asked my pastor about that verse, and he said that doesn't apply to this. When trust is broken, honor is gone. And that for me was a one time. It solidified that, yeah, I forgive her, and I'm going to move on with my life. I think my kryptonite is always going to be seeing the pain that my sisters have to live through. And that's when it becomes a momental kind of like,
I will say though, like me, it's been healing seeing my children like be children.
Yeah.
And I'm not a perfect mother by any stretch of the imagination, but seeing them be children, and like when my boys want to go play soccer outside and I go and play with them, or when they want to play baseball. I don't know how to play baseball. I don't know how to play soccer, but I go out there and I do it. And I don't know how to play video games, and generally I don't, but I'll watch them build their Minecraft house and they think it's terrific. But and I'm just over there like, all right, whatever. But it's like those moments bring healing for me. Just seeing my kids. And then also like, and this isn't in a like a boastful sense, it's like I tell myself, Erin, you are a good mom.
you are,
Like
you are a good
like
mom.
you
Very
like
good mom.
I wasn't taught how to be a mom.
Exactly.
I wasn't taught how to be a mom. I wasn't taught. Definitely there was not an example.
Exactly.
You know,
Blank slate.
my first real mother figure was my ex-husband's mom.
Mm-hmm.
And she was my first real mother figure.
She was a sweetheart.
And
too.
that was also very healing for me too, because I mean, she loved me so much. And I mean, she always called to check up on me and send me text messages, and she would buy me books and like all this other stuff. And she'd just make tea and we'd talk and everything. So it's like things like that. Like I hold on to those things. And then I have like really great in-laws now. And that's also healing too.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it's like forgiveness, but it's more of like just
moving forward
and recognizing things in your life now that are healing.
Yeah.
Cool. But yeah, so next episode we will start with Brooke.
Goody.
Thank you for listening to this. We really hope that, you know, this helped you in some way, shape, or form. We'll see you next time.